Organizations these days are really faced with a lot of decisions regarding their cybersecurity programs. A lot of this is due to threat actors becoming more and more intelligent, more and more changes within the cybersecurity threat landscape. And really, it feels a lot of the time that there are an overwhelming number of decisions to make. One of the ways you can really head that off and start to build yourself a blueprint or a plan for your overall cybersecurity program is to establish a framework in order to base your cybersecurity program and maturity on. Frameworks vary in a few ways, but many of them are related to compliance or regulatory requirements you may have. So that's a really good place to start when you're establishing which framework you want to follow for your program. If you have compliance regulations, PCI or HIPAA or other regulators that you have to answer to, choose the framework that they recommend first. You can always tack on other frameworks later, but what the important part here is to establish a place to start. NIST, as an example, is a fairly widely adopted cybersecurity framework, and it contains a ton of research and information and guidelines for you to be able to read and review as you build out what your program needs to look like. Once you establish a framework, you know where you need to put the finish line. Then look at the framework and each different domain and component of the framework and determine, am I doing this? Am I partially doing this? Am I not doing this? That will give you a clear path toward completion. You know what you need to focus on, where your gaps are, and it's really a plan you can follow in order to implement the best cybersecurity program your organization can have. Once you establish a full framework and you fill the gaps and you've determined where the biggest risks are, then if you determine, hey, I really like the technical controls of CIS, I want to add that to my program, you can continue to build upon your maturity. But establishing where you need to start and where you need to end is really the best step in order to build a mature cybersecurity program. Once you get through the planning phase, actually build it. Determine, hey, in this year's budget, what can I do? What tools do I need in order to complete these gaps, to close these gaps? And then test it. Testing it is super important. If you implemented a tool for endpoint protection and when you test it, that tool doesn't work the way you need it to, then you know that your maturity needs to grow a little bit more and you need to look at other tools. So plan out your cybersecurity program, establish a base framework you want to follow, assess that program against what you're actually doing within your environment, and test what you have implemented to ensure it's running effectively.